Okay, so hopefully you should spend a few minutes doing that task. Here we have the answers. So the first one around PE. So PE, this is an argument. So the conclusion is that schools should spend more time teaching PE. The supporting reason is that obesity is becoming more of a problem in society, and PE is a way of combating that. Okay, so that's clearly stating your reasons and conclusions within that statement. Okay, number 2. So that was around getting people to campaign for lacrosse to become an Olympic sport and getting people's signatures. This is not an argument, it's a plea to persuade people to act in a particular way. Number 3, this was around drug testing procedures of violating an athlete's right to privacy and them being it's unfair for them to be subjected to that drug testing. So this is actually an argument. The conclusion is that the athlete should not be subject to drug testing. The reason is that the current testing procedures violates their athlete's privacy and rights. And then finally, the exercise physiology. This is not an argument, it's purely merely a description of what exercise physiology assesses and looking at exercise and fitness and the key parts of that. So it's very much a descriptive task. So you can see when you're reading through your work, being able to identify some of those key arguments, but also providing evidence that supports the key points. So when we're building an academic argument, you need to focus on the subject, identify your claim, give evidence, and then obviously include assumptions and support that. So breaking this down further, the components of academic arguments is the subject, which can be disputed. The claims, sum up your argument in one clear brief sentence or is a statement that requires support, often includes a call to action. Evidence, show why the point of view is a good one. It may include a main point for each piece of, and give evidence for each key point. And it's also about questioning the reliability of your evidence. So the assumption is based on opinions, the principle or belief that ties evidence to the claims, explains why the evidence is relevant to a particular claim. So they're the key components of developing an academic argument. So focusing on that evidence element, it's really important that you maybe include facts, maybe it's statistics, expert opinions, examples, you might link to theory, other people's research and judgments, and then you may include possibly some personal experience, but these need to be backed up with evidence. So now I'm going to discuss some cautionary points about developing academic arguments. Statement of facts, these are not debatable, they should be used and supported with evidence. So for example, the lecturer's notes are available on Blackboard. This is a statement of fact. Okay, making the lecturer's notes available on Blackboard will not enhance students' education. This is debatable as it can be supported by facts and examples. Another thing to be aware of, statement of personal belief or preference. So maybe an opinion, sport energy drinks do not taste good. Well, you might think that, but I might not. So it's making sure that your beliefs don't come into an influence. The primary goal of a coach is to provide equal opportunity to participate. Although seeming arguable, a statement of belief is not based on facts and cannot be contested or supported with evidence. So it's making sure that your statements aren't influenced by personal belief and that whatever you provide has evidence that supports it. So some key points, an academic argument must provide details that address and provide a response to opposing views, therefore state the opposing views, disprove that those that, and acknowledge those that are credible and look at different viewpoints, demonstrate why, despite their own validity, that opposing views are less compelling than your own or the kind of research that you're going to use as your supporting evidence. So here's an example of a kind of an argument. So it kind of demonstrates in a practical example. So supporters of stricter gun control legislation are right when they cite studies showing that more homicides occur in places where more people have guns. However, many of these studies refer to loose firearms, which are easily accessible. In this situation, where guns are locked away, prevent easy access, children or intruders, the level of homicide is much less. You can clearly see there's kind of some key points in terms of stating the facts and supporting that with evidence. So I'm going to quickly look at the rhetorical triangle. This is art of using words well when speaking and writing. There's some key components. So it's looking at logic, the logos, the pathos and the ethos. So the main techniques is structure of speech, the opening, the body, the conclusion, references to studies, statistics, case studies, and comparison, analogies and metaphors. The pathos is going to basically the emotions and values. So this is stories, inspirational quotes, and use of vivid language. whereas the ethos is around the credibility and trust. So, is the confidence in delivery, the credibility of sites and sources that you've used. So the logical appeal, which is a logos, is the strategic use of logic, claims, evidence to convince the audience in a particular way, generally believe in the things that make sense. Ethical appeal, which is the ethos, this is basically trying to establish that the writer is being fair and open-minded, and that you can basically, it has honesty and knowledgeable, and you trust them with their subject. So generally people tend to believe people who they feel they can trust. So it's about developing that trust within your work. The emotional appeal, the pathos, this targets the emotions of the reader to create some kind of connection with them. This can be a powerful strategy in an argument. But there's some caution that it's not misused to mislead a reader to hide weak logic or within the argument. It has visual appeal in an emotional nature, and obviously it can manipulate and occur through appeals to people's emotions. So you can use this process, but it's making sure you use it carefully and you're not using it to create misleading arguments or hiding stuff within your arguments. So hopefully I've given you kind of an overview into academic arguments, understanding them when in your reading, but also giving you some ideas at writing them. I guess the key help point for really practical application of academic arguments is using templates as examples to actually then formulate arguments within your work. So as you can see on screen, I've got 2 examples of some academic argument templates that could be used when developing or in your work. They look at the reason, the for, the against, the yes, and then looking at supporting evidence. So it's about you using these to help you formulate your essays or presentations or work, or even debates. Looking at one in more detail, this is a framework for constructing the argument. So at the top there you've got the main argument, the hypothesis or idea, which should be stated clearly at the beginning. You need to let the reader know what it is you're planning on doing. Then what you've got below is a reason for the essay title, so statement or hypothesis. You might include some key points within this. Then you're going to include evidence examples from different people that have written about this. So then you'd have maybe 3 points with an A and a B supporting vice and versa. So then at the bottom there you've also got, you need to include the opposing views and ideas. I've said already, it's important that you're not just one-sided, you're creating that argument between the two and having evidence to support that. So then you'd have 3 points that look at opposing views, but then really importantly, as I've said all the way through, that you need to make sure you have evidence and examples from that different people have written about to support your opposing views. Then you're going to maybe include some reasons why the arguments are weaker or stronger in the reasoning. And then you conclude, where the reader can interpret and summarise the views discussed, and you can discuss, what the evidence suggests. So there's kind of a clear structure for when you're putting together academic arguments, identifying, reasons, opposing views, and evidence to support them. Hopefully these templates will be a good resource for you to help within your, work, whether it's essays or presentations that you're going to be asked to do in terms of an academic format. Okay, to conclude this session, I've got a task for you. I'd actually like you to go away and use one of the frameworks to construct an argument. You can use the last one I've just actually gone over. I think this is quite a good template to start with. What I'd like you to do is complete the framework for one of the following titles. You could spend a good 10-15 minutes having a go at doing this. It's going to help you with future work, and I think it's a really good tool to start actually using to formulate your practice and develop your learning approach within this method.